Comfort is king. From vehicles to sofas to mattresses, we all want to test comfort before making a purchase. And the same thing can be said about zero-turn mowers. Today, we're going to be looking at two brands that are incredibly comfortable and offer a lot of great suspension and are ultimately two of the most comfortable rides you can buy in the zero-turn realm. When people come to our lot and they want to ask about zero-turn mowers, a question that almost everybody asks is, which one is more comfortable? How's this one on comfort? Does this offer any suspension? And so many people are looking for a ride that is enjoyable. And part of that enjoyment is finding comfort in that ride as well. So obviously we have Bad Boy and we have Toro. So if you were to guess that those were the two we were comparing today, you'd be absolutely right. But what type of video would this be if we didn't at least feature one of them, if not both? So Bad Boy's got their own individual suspension, as does Toro. We're gonna jump in and show you both of them and see if there's one that's more comfortable than the other, and maybe if there's one that's a better value than the other. So on the Toro side, which is where we'll start, you'll notice they have their MyRide suspension. So if you look at two of these machines right next to each other, this time cutter all the way on the left here is going to be a standard platform. You can see there's no noticeable suspension points on it whatsoever. Underneath the seat, if we were to flip the seat up, you'll see a couple little springs that offer suspension underneath the seat. But outside of that, there's nothing significant to add to your overall comfort. That's where the MyRide suspension system comes in. So this is a Time Cutter Havoc. You can also get this MyRide on a standard Time Cutter Max as well. If you've never seen the MyRide suspension before, this is probably one of the most significant suspension systems in the entire zero-turn industry. Most brands will offer some sort of frame suspension on different points near the front forks or in the rear of the machine. There's not many that are offering a fully suspended mowing platform like what Toro does. So you can see with just a little bit of pressure, you can see just how much suspension you're getting there. The suspension is central here on that spring. So this is a full platform, so you're gonna be feeling a lot of a rocking motion in that support. That's another thing that's a little bit different about it. Most suspension systems you're gonna feel on zero-turn mowers offer a lot of up and down suspension. If it's a premium suspension seat, that's gonna be a lot of up and down suspension. If there's frame, there's gonna be a lot more up and down suspension than forward and back. Now, Toro, you're gonna feel a lot of forward and back, and like I said, almost the feeling of a rocking motion, which is super unique in the industry. And with that, we've heard a lot of great reviews, as well as a lot of kind of unsure reviews. There are some people who talk about MyRide being the most comfortable ride they have ever experienced on a lawnmower. And there are some people who talk about feeling a little bit disconnected from the machine. Reason for being disconnected is when you're on this central spring, you can see this platform is not actually connected to the frame of the mower. That's pretty unique to Toro as well. So that's something that you can feel a little bit disconnected from, but overall the reviews are incredible about this MyRide suspension. The other great thing about MyRide is it's not one size fits all. A lot of the suspension systems you'll see on mowers is just right there on the frame, you've got it on and it's just doing its thing, right? MyRide, you can see they'll always give you an adjustment capability. So the further forward you are, the stiffer the suspension is gonna feel, and the further back you are, the looser the suspension is going to feel. So you can actually customize it exactly to what feels right for you, which I think is awesome. If you look at the Titan series or a Z Master, you're going to see this adjustment from right here goes towards the back of the seat. So it does look a little bit different, but it does very similar things. So right now I have it as loose as possible. So you see if I jump on this machine right now, do you see just right there how much it moves as I step on? And when I sit down, you can see just how dramatic of a suspension it is. I mean, there's a good 6 to 8 inches of clearance right up front here just from being it all the way loose. If I were to adjust it all the way forward, we can watch that same spot. And now look at the difference. See how much tighter and more stiff that suspension is? So we would recommend most people to put it kind of right in the middle to start to find the sweet spot for them, but you can see just how much of adjustability you truly have. The difference from the suspension being completely stiff to completely loose is pretty significant. The other nice thing about Toro's MyRide is they're putting it on cutting decks as small as a 42-inch cut. If you go to Bad Boy, the smallest you can get any sort of suspension on, they do have a 42-inch Maverick HD, but in the residential, the early level residential, you can't get any suspension suspension until the ZT Elite Point, which the smallest that offers is a 48-inch cut. So you can see exact same premise as what we saw inside, just on a small 42-inch cut. So the fact that they're putting it on their entry-level residential models is really great. Something like this is gonna be at about $43.99. So you're under $4,400 for a zero-turn mower with premium suspension. It's a really good value that Toro offers. And for how great and beneficial MyRide is, it's hard to find something that doesn't have one or two cons as well. So as much as we love it, there are two things that I wish were a little bit different. Number one, there's no sort of deck access, right? You can see this is fully in place right here, so there's no easy way to access the top of your mowing deck. On other models of Toro, you can see you can very easily flip open this to access the top of the cutting deck, which I think is nice. So there's no easy maintenance on the top of the deck for the pulleys, the belts, to blow it out after use. Again, is that the end of the world? No, but you do just prefer models that do give you that accessibility. And then secondly, MyRide is an expensive add-on for these zero-turn mowers. So to make the jump from a standard mower with no MyRide to the same exact model with MyRide, in the residential side, you're gonna be between about $600 to $1,000. So it does add a little bit to that price point if you want the MyRide suspension. Now, is it worth it? I think that in a lot of cases it is, if you have really uneven terrain, or if you're just someone who's at the point in your life where you want something ultra comfortable that can really help your body. If you're mowing a couple times a week, then that's where I think it's worth it to step up into a model with that MyRide suspension. But it can be hard to stomach going from about a $38.99 price point for a 50-inch time cutter up to a $43.99 price point with MyRide suspension. So I wouldn't even really call that a downside. That just is the reality of it, is it is a premium upgrade that you can get that's going to cost you. Then on the other side of the showroom here, we have the Bad Boy ZT Elite. So this ZT Elite, this is the first one that Bad Boy is putting any sort of frame suspension on their mowers. There's an Avenger and then there's a Magnum series. So once you know where to look for the suspension, you can really see any sort of Bad Boy that does or doesn't have it. On the ZT Elite, they have front rubber isolators that you'll see right here on these independent steering arms. If we look at the Magnum, which again is a couple series down, you'll notice right away, no rubber isolators, a fully rigid frame. There will be no suspension on anything lower than the ZT Elite. So this is the first one Bad Boy does any sort of suspension on. So this is gonna be really nice on uneven terrain. And the reason being is that these are actually two independent arms. So as I lift the front end, if you kind of watch right there on that isolator, you'll see how those arms kind of pivot up and down as I lifted there. The same will be true if you're driving your mower on uneven terrain, on bumps in your yard. So those rubber isolators are gonna add a good deal of suspension up front once you jump into the ZT Elite line. And what makes the ZT Elite such a great mower option is this isn't something that you have to pay up for. Other brands where you do have to pay up for suspension, this is coming standard. So something like this is a 48-inch cut with the Kohler engine. It's at $52.99. So to be at a price point like that with frame suspension is great. And then with those isolators, you're always gonna have deck access. So you can flip up this platform really easily and access the top of your deck to, again, service the pulleys, spindles, belts, blowout after uses, whatever you might need. And then after the ZT Elite, there is a Maverick series. We do have a Maverick HD, which is the identical frame to the Maverick series, so we can talk about this as well. As you step up in series, you'll see they keep those same front rubber isolators. They just add I-beam framing up front as well, so you're even getting sturdier of a frame up front on these Bad Boy mowers. And then on the Maverick series and up, this is where it gets really good. This is where that suspension gets taken to the next level because they add two more of those rubber isolators on either side of the wheelbase. And they're not just on the frame, they're not just on either side of the wheelbase, they are integrated with the transaxle. So that's what Bad Boy calls their Easy Ride system, which is phenomenal because something like Ferris, which those have the big shocks right on the backside there, those are mounted on the frame. What Bad Boy does is they put one on either side of your transaxle. So each drivetrain actually operates independently, which adds a ton of suspension on the backside. So if we look underneath here, you'd be able to see exactly what I'm talking about with those two rubber isolators on either side, and you'll notice they are on either side of that transaxle. So again, those can be found on the Maverick series all the way up to the Rogue series and are really what makes it such a comfortable ride and why you can compare the Bad Boy commercial suspension to almost any other suspension system on the market. And every single time, what's really great about them is you'll never have to pay up for the suspension. They're consistently gonna be one of the best bang for buck brands in the entire industry there. So we've seen the ZT Elite suspension, We've seen the Maverick HD suspension. So now we need to look at the R series suspension, and we actually got it right next to the MyRide suspension on the Z Master as well. So we're gonna head outside and take one final look at either of these suspension systems. So right over here is a Z Master 2000 series with the MyRide suspension. So you can get the MyRide on commercial Z Masters. The 2000 and 4000 series are the most common models that will feature MyRide suspension. So you can see there's that same platform. It's got even larger of a spring right up front here, so you can see that same suspension right there in the frame. But you'll notice around the backside here, you no longer have that hand adjustment here. You can notice there's separate springs in the back, so it just gets a little bit heavier duty, a little bit more rigid. So it's as easy as you can just slide it forward and back to kind of determine exactly where you want your suspension to be for the Z Master. So I would say we sell far more residential machines with MyRide than the commercial. And again, that's just because you're gonna find the price jumping once you add the MyRide suspension. And what a lot of brands will end up doing that you'll see Bad Boy do and Toro on their other commercial brands is put an air ride seat. So that air ride seat can make all the difference in the world on these commercial machines. So again, this is on the commercial Z Master. Really nothing changes except it getting super rigid, a lot larger than what you see residentially, and then the springs change from the side to the rear. And then finally we have the Bad Boy Rogue. So on this Rogue here, you're gonna notice again, heavier duty front arms right here with those same rubber isolators. Now, we've been selling Bad Boy for about 2-3 years, and we've never had anybody need to replace those isolators. If you did need to replace them, they're pretty easy. You can tell, you just need to remove this screw right here, and you're gonna be at about like 60 to 70 bucks per isolator. So they're really not crazy expensive, but with them just being solid rubber, it's a pretty easy install if you were to need to do any work on it. So that's another advantage of Bad Boy is, again, in those 2 years we've had them, we haven't had to actually replace any, but if you did need to, it's a pretty simple process for replacing your suspension that doesn't make you have to get a huge long repair or potentially replace the entire machine, which basically saves you a lot of money in the long run. But what's unique about the Rogue is they have the front suspension, they have those rear suspension, and they're gonna add their patented 3-link trailing arms on the back side as well. So what that's gonna be is kind of like an ATV style trailing arm. In the video that you're seeing right now, you can see just how much suspension it's adding to the frame of the machine. So again, that's something that only Bad Boy is doing in the industry, and it's really nice to add to a machine like the Rogue. That's their top line commercial model and adds a lot of comfort to it. So underneath the seat of the Rogue, you'll see you have a couple rubber points right here. And then underneath as well, you have a rubber isolator on either side there as well. So that's where those rubber isolators are gonna be on the rear side of the machine. And then the 3-link trailing arms are all the way underneath in the very back. And there are plenty other brands that have suspension as well. I've mentioned Ferris. They're one of the most well-known brands with their frame suspension. You got Gravely that does suspension, Husqvarna does suspension, Exmark has their own take. There's a lot of brands that do different suspension. These are just two that we have that are very popular and well-known for their suspension components. So which to choose? What I would probably say is anything in the residential realm, I lean Toro. I think that MyRide is really nice. You can't escape that value of Bad Boy with the rubber isolators, but I do think that MyRide suspension is really nice in that Time Cutter and Titan series. And then in Bad Boy, where I'd kind of make the switch to them is once you get to that Maverick series, when you have the rear suspension integrated with the transaxles that allow for independent movement with the drivetrain. I think that's where Bad Boy takes over as one of the most comfortable rides in the entire zero-turn industry. And then commercially, those premium suspension seats make a world of difference, but if we're looking at MyRide and we're looking at the Bad Boy rubber isolators, again, I probably lean towards the rubber isolators, but you cannot deny how comfortable and how unique of a ride is on the Toro MyRide. So with that being said, let us know in the comments which one you would choose. I know that we're probably gonna be pretty split. I'd be interested to see what people would choose, or maybe what drove you away from certain brands because of the suspension or the lack of suspension. Let us know in those comments. But as always, we appreciate you watching. Make sure you like and subscribe on this video. Give us some video ideas in the comments as well. Let us know what you're hoping to see. And until next time, we'll see you later.